Good evening and welcome to the joint meeting of the Westborough Select Board and Advisory Finance Committee. Calling the meeting to order tonight, Monday, March 4th, at approximately 7 p.m. at Memorial Hall and Town Hall. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted in person and via remote means in accordance with applicable law. This means that members of the public body, as well as members of the public, may access this meeting in person or via virtual means. In-person attendance will be at the location here, and it is possible that all members of the public body may attend remotely with in-person attendance consisting of members of the public. This meeting may be accessed remotely via the link in the agenda. When required by law or allowed by the chairs, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so by in-person attendance or accessing the meeting remotely as noted. Additionally, the meeting will be broadcast live in real time via Verizon Channel 28, Charter Channel 192, or via Westborough TV's online platforms at westboroughTV.org and youtube.com/WestboroughTV. This meeting will be recorded and live streamed by Westborough TV, and we thank them for their assistance.
If you are able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for attending this evening. We'll go over a few housekeeping items. We will not be having open forum this evening, and we will not be soliciting public comment during the proceedings tonight. The next select board meeting is a week from tomorrow, March 12th. There will be open forum at the beginning of that meeting. Additionally, you're welcome at town meeting to speak regarding any of these articles during town meeting. In terms of how we will, let me just say first, we have a history of proponents of citizens petitions coming before the Select Board and Advisory Finance Committee in order to educate town voters on their proposals, and that is why we are here this evening. The format will be, we will do the articles in number order, starting with number 33 and going through 46. There will be a 3-minute presentation for each article. When you get to the 3-minute mark, you'll be asked to wrap up by somebody up here at the table. After the presentation is concluded, we'll then come to the board and the committee if anybody here has any questions of any of the proponents. Are there any questions regarding that? Good.
I just want to mention also that both boards will accept written comments as well.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
And with that, we will begin with the first article, Article number 33, to fund the Afro-Caribbean Festival. Sure, you have 3 minutes.
So this is Article 33. I'm Ted Gilbert, 26 Charles Street. Okay. Article 33 to request to fund an Afro-Caribbean Festival for the town of Westborough. To see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $3,500 or such other amount as the town meeting may approve for the annual Afro-Caribbean Festival at the Bay State Commons celebration to be expended by the Westborough Afro-Caribbean Festival under the direction of the Select Board or take any other action thereon, to be held at the end of August or beginning of September 2024. This article pays the cost for the annual Afro-Caribbean Festival celebration. The motion of this article requires a simple majority vote. Afro-Caribbean Festival's mission is to celebrate, showcase the heritage, and promote local and international talents from the Afro-Caribbean diaspora. We are excited to announce our first annual Afro-Caribbean Cultural Festival 2024, which we'll be celebrating, is taking place at the end of August or beginning of September 2024. Do you want to read the bottom part here? Boyd?
No, go ahead.
The Afro-Caribbean Cultural Festival is a step towards the elimination of discrimination, racism, and prejudice. It is festivals and events like these that are beneficial in promoting community support, multiculturalism, and equity initiatives. This interaction, through the inclusion and welcoming of diverse Americans, will help to increase participants' sense of belonging and attachment to America. Porta potties, police, fire, ambulance, the DJ. We've looked into these things, but we're happy to answer any questions.
You've concluded your remarks?
I have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from anyone?
Sure,
Yes.
I'll start. So I would like to understand what group or groups have you gentlemen been working with to organize this?
Well, I've been in touch with one DJ so far who is popular in this arena, and he's actually done other festivals like this. He's located in Boston. His name does not come to mind at the moment, but based on a cursory Google search, it does not seem like it's that difficult, and he was very eager to participate. We talked about a number, $1,800, something like that. They bring their own sound equipment and speakers, and it seems to happen pretty regularly in the Commonwealth.
And so the groups will be. Is it working?
Yep,
Okay,
yep,
no.
you can hear you.
The groups will be looking to work with. Apparently, about 2 years ago, there were 16 hotels that were taking the Haitians and the Dominicans from into Massachusetts, and Westborough signed up for 4 of those hotels. And so apparently we're pulling 25% of that population. Maybe I don't know what the actual numbers are, but I think 2 years ago it was 16 hotels in Massachusetts, and Westborough had 4 of them. And I guess also Northborough, the one over at the India Market, is in Northborough, but that would be 5. So there's a pretty high population that we can work with to bring into this, bring in some of the local Afro-Caribbeans.
So just to be clear, you haven't actually worked with anyone in the Afro-Caribbean community to understand their interest in this event. Is that a fair statement?
Well, actually, I guess you and I were both talking to a guy from Ghana last night.
Right, but prior to, you put this article on the warrant last night, it's been on the warrant well before then, so, and that was a casual conversation that had nothing to do
Well,
with this.
exactly. I'll be talking to the guy later. We exchanged phone numbers and this kind of thing.
Okay, and just to be clear, for the folks listening, certainly for both boards and committee here, the town did not sign up for any sort of emergency sheltering or hospital stays. That was something that was initiated from Boston and from the Commonwealth, just for clarity. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
No, I have a question. Sorry,
Wait, I
just
do.
to make sure.
Alan has one.
Oh,
No.
okay, go ahead, Alan.
How far, it doesn't sound like you're very far along in the project plan. Have you met with Public Safety, Department of Health, Rec Department, Spirit Committee, any other towns, of our town board and committee that would be involved in helping or supporting the event? Do you have any sort of project plan or marketing plan? Any list of organizations that you expect to reach out to, any other sponsors? Do you have a budget? The town meeting is very generous each year and allocates, I believe, $3,500 towards the 4th of July festival, but that actually costs more to put on. There are other sponsors and other people involved. I'm wondering, is the $3,500 enough? Or do you have other, do you have a budget and have a sense of other sources of funds?
You know, it is a bit of a cold start, I would admit, but so far, based on the brief, the bit of research that we've done so far, it seems like this is going to be a learning curve for all of us, and we really we think it's a great idea, and we'd like to just put it to the people of Westborough and see if there's interest.
So then the other thing, Alan, so we're kind of looking to the July 4th town get-together kind of thing to kind of pattern it a bit after that. So we don't actually have any idea about what the law enforcement, what the deal is, whether the town provides that or that's something that goes out of the 3,500 budget or that kind of thing. There has been, obviously there's been multiple problems before in Boston and in Worcester previously with these types of fairs.
So just
I guess my understanding is that the extent of your planning is to put it on the warrant, and you've spoken to two people, a DJ and someone you met recently and spoke to Select Board member Marshall about last night, but you don't have a budget. End of August, early September is a very short time frame. I mean, the Cultural Council spends 10, 12 months planning Arts and Common, the July 4th. Planning starts very early. There are groups in town who help plan those events that you haven't spoken to, who could already be providing you guidance on how to do it. I'm supportive of having another cultural festival in Westborough. I think it's great for the community, and it'll bring people into our community and bring people into our downtown district, and they'll see our shops and our restaurants and hopefully come back again and use those shops and restaurants. I just concern you're asking town meeting to appropriate money when in fact there's actually no plan in place.
Yeah, we actually reached out to Westborough Connects, but they weren't interested in having anything to do with it.
If I may, just as a board member of Westborough Connects.
I have those emails.
Yep, yeah, and I do too, Ted. Thank you very much. We did not act on that because there was no plan, and there was no plan on which around we could rally any support. So let me be very clear about that.
So my last question is, how quickly do you think you could actually have an event plan?
I think that with the help of Westborough Connects, we could give it a month. I think we could have a really good plan.
Okay, I just, even with great expertise, not just from Westborough Connects, but Rotary and other organizations that are involved in town activities, that a month is not feasible to actually coming up with a plan. It takes much longer to plan and secure participants, vendors, sponsors, logistics. The fact that we haven't even had preliminary conversations with the town departments that would be involved for the necessary permit is extremely disappointing.
Well, I appreciate that point of view, but we're coming to the town also with this idea as citizens, and we're hoping that you guys, with your expertise, with a time frame, can help us. So, let's work together. It's a team effort.
Okay.
Right?
So just to be clear, the block party, $3,500 comes from the town, but there's a very large amount of money that's fundraised in addition to that. So it isn't as simple as just getting $3,500 from the town to put on something of that size. It's probably more about the ilk of $15,000. And then my second thought is that you're not just coming and asking the town, are they interested? You're asking the town to transfer $3,500 from free cash to fund it. And from that point of view, this is not a non-binding argument. This is a spend money argument. And I think we should hold a higher standard of what preparation is done for that type of event. And if you wanted to do it as a straw poll, that's different. Allocating money gets my attention more.
So, can we get the books on like the July 4th parade to figure out, like how much some of this stuff costs? Who would we see? Would we?
The rec department runs that.
The rec department and Westborough Connects?
No.
Nothing to do with?
Well, many groups in town are sponsor, but they donate money. They don't directly.
But finding out what the donations are and who's donating from
rec
the
department,
20 companies around here that tend to always donate, kind of thing. Is there a place that we can go for that information?
Rec department
Just
is where I
rec
point
department.
you.
Jennifer Kirkland? Yeah.
Is that
Okay.
correct? Yeah, okay. Because they always publish the sponsors as well. to the
Yeah,
event.
we want to pattern it after what's usual and customary here in Westborough.
Yeah, just one final thought. As the article states, this would be under the direction of the Select Board. Would be my understanding the Select Board would be determine what town members would comprise this committee. Just to give you a heads up on that, all right?
If you have
With
any
that,
suggestions,
That wasn't a question. That
okay.
wasn't a question.
Oh, okay.
With that, we'll end debate on this article. Why don't we move on to the next proposal?
Thank you.
Ready?
Sure. Am I going or are you
You're
going?
on. You're on.
Okay.
I don't know if you've properly introduced yourself, I think, from the last one, so,
Boyd Conklin, 8 Water Street.
thank you.
We're on Article 34.
Yes.
Removal of LGBTQ plus iconography from Westborough schools by petition. Removal of LGBT plus iconography. Let's repeat. To see if the town will vote on a non-binding petition to remove the LGBTQ plus iconography from Westborough schools, political organizational messages and/or social organizational movements, flyers, stickers, iconography, murals, banners, flags have no place in Westborough schools. Article information. Room 39 at Gibbons Middle School is an outlandish example of the horrific indoctrination / grooming occurring in Westborough schools. We have toured the site with Amber Bach, superintendent, but we're not allowed to photo document the tour. A photo documentation has been done in the hallways of the Westborough High School, and the photos can be found and there's a Flickr site with a link. Also, there's a 70-foot long, 6-foot high LGBTQ rainbow banner, transgender banner in the hallways of the high school. The grooming continues at Westborough schools, and now 22% high school students identify as LGBTQ+. The 10% for the males and 31%, I believe, for the females. Why should there be hundreds of advertisements for LGBTQ+ distributed throughout the Westborough schools to our most vulnerable children / youth who can be easily groomed into LGBTQ+? As can be seen by the ever-increasing percentages it captures of our students. We don't advertise cigarettes in the school. Why is LGBTQ allowed to be advertised relentlessly? No one is asking for the persecution of LGBTQ. We are asking for the removal of the LGBTQ plus promotional materials. It has been done in all town buildings by select board decree, as we understand it. Gen Z adults are significantly more likely than older generations to identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual, or something else, with 28% identifying as LGBTQ, compared with 16% of millennials, 7% of Generation X, 4% of baby
Please
boomers.
wrap up.
3 minutes?
That was 3 minutes. Please
Very
wrap
good.
up. Questions from anybody? Shall we address?
Sure, thank you. So mine is not more of a, not so much a question, but more of a statement. So just today, I had the opportunity to be in Gibbons. I had reason to be in Gibbons and Armstrong and Hastings. And what I saw was a beautiful learning environment. Absolutely beautiful for students, and certainly supported by all the staff there. I think if you look in all of our schools, you would see, and including the high school that Mr. Conklin references, that the school murals are not just rainbows and unicorns. There's lots going on there, and I think we all know that. I want to be clear that the statement made in the article information is completely false, specifically referencing the quote, "as has been done in all town-owned buildings." That's a false statement. The only policy that the select board has made around that could be even remotely related to this is our flag policy, and Mr. Welch helped rewrite that policy, so he can certainly speak to that, where we were very clear about what flags would fly on town-owned flagpoles, and that is the American flag, the POW flag, and the state flag. Is that correct? Thanks. So we have made no such policies around iconography. I also want to speak to, on a personal note, but also in support of staff. I am completely appalled by the proponent and his cronies, by the continued slander against staff and elected officials. Elected officials, well, we're elected so we can take it, and that just goes with the job, although it is a volunteer job. But the insinuation of calling any of us groomers, and I'll put myself there specifically because I'm of the LGBT community, is a disgusting comment. As for the statistics about people being closeted, or excuse me, about more people being gay, I'm not going to rattle off a bunch of statistics, but I'm 52 years old. And when I was coming of age in the early 80s in high school, and boy, does that seem a long time ago, you just didn't talk about those things. There were not safe spaces. There were not rainbows or transgender ribbons or anything like that in school. And it was a scary time to grow up. And we shouldn't be going back to that. Our schools should be a welcoming place for everyone, whatever your color is, whatever your sexuality is, whatever. It just shouldn't be an issue. And the fact that this proponent and a small cohort of individuals are making an issue of this in our town is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. I would far rather err on the side of allowing for a rainbow flag to exist outside a classroom and let that student know, as it would have been had I been that student many years ago, walking in like, you know what, I just know someone here understands me. Because I was the other. I still feel like the other. That rainbow flag does no harm to my very dear straight friends who I love. It does no harm. It does not promote it, period. Thank you.
So
I'm not
There was
asking
not
for
a
a
question
comment.
there. There was not a question.
If I may rebuttal to
It's
Shelby's statement?
not a rebuttal.
It was not a question, and it's not a debate. It's a
Okay.
education period.
technique.
You had your
Okay.
3 minutes to present.
Sure.
Anybody,
Oh, I'll make a
would you like to say something?
Sure. First of all, I'd like to express my thanks to Member Marshall for her comments. I think they were extremely appropriate. I will say that having had a family member who committed suicide as a result of being bullied for their sexuality I'm totally appalled by your comments. I will also say that.
Now, is this a
I will
statement
also
also?
say, I will also say that Westborough's
a question?
school system is a public school system. It serves all students, not just my students, not just your children, all the children of our town. So to discriminate against any particular population of a town is, to me, is just unfathomable. And it's really a sad day that you're bringing this forward to the town. I respect your rights to come and speak. I expect your right to put something on the warrant. I clearly will not support this, and I ask other members of the community to do the same.
So once again, this is a statement by you, Patrick? This is
statement.
not
I'm
a question?
asking you a question.
Okay, so I can't talk. Okay.
I would just say, Shelby, thank you. Patrick, thank you. On to Article 35.
Article 35.
Oh, who did I miss? Beth. Thank you very
Hi,
much.
sorry, Beth. I just want to say I support what Shelby said. I think that there's so many different people in town and we need to be inclusive. And this warrant article should be passed over by both committees.
Thank you, Beth.
You're welcome.
I think it should be resoundingly defeated. Article 35.
End Westborough Schools Anti-Racism Initiative. To see if the town will vote on a non-binding petition to end Westborough Schools Anti-Racism Initiatives or take any other action thereon. We no longer believe that Westborough's administration and school committee have any of our children's best interests at heart. Moreover, we no longer have confidence that our children will receive the quality of education necessary to further their development into a critically thinking, responsible, enlightened, and civic-minded adult. As a fellow parents, community members, we share our reasons for taking to task the Westborough Schools community, but also to urge you to act before the damage to the school, to its community, and to your own child's education is irreparable. It cannot be stated strongly enough that Westborough Schools' obsession with race must stop. To be abundantly clear to any thinking parent that Westborough Schools has completely lost its way. The administration and the school committee have displayed a cowardly and appalling lack of leadership by appeasing an anti-intellectual, illiberal mob and then allowing the school to be captured by the same mob. Here in Westborough Schools, we've got a 40% Indian population. So 40% of the kids in the school are of Indian descent. So by and large, the Indians don't vote because 1 out of 20 of them, maybe 1 out of 10, somewhere in between, actually have citizenship to vote. But they are paying the taxes in this town for a big portion of what goes on here. So, anyways, this is racism business. It's ridiculous. I don't see this endless persecution. Now we've got a few people that visit the school board that have all kinds of proposals that are going on with their own racism agenda too. What follows are our own personal views on Westborough Schools' anti-racism initiatives. But these are just a handful of the criticisms that I know other parents have expressed. I object to the view that I should be judged by the color of my skin. I cannot tolerate a school that has not only judges my children by the color of their skin, but encourages and instructs them to prejudice others by theirs. By viewing every element of education, every aspect of history, and every facet of society through the lens of skin color and race.
Wrap up, please.
3 minutes?
Yes. Are there any questions from those here? Any comments, any questions? No? Article 36.
Bar gender, are we moving on now?
Yes.
Bar gender-affirming care for minors. Barring gender-affirming care for minors. To see if the town will vote on a non-binding petition to bar gender-affirming care for minors in Westborough. No hormone blockers, no cross-hormone therapy, no surgical procedures, dress however you like, and change your name at will are allowed. So, once again, here in Westborough is just a microcosm of what's going on in Massachusetts, what's going on in the nation, what's going on in the world. 22 states have barred gender-affirming care for minors in the United States. This is not some big ploy by me in this town to turn the apple cart. It's not about prosecuting LGBTQ or transgenders, as you would have it seem. One can imagine that when you take a child and you move them into the hormone blockers, which are Lupron, which is a chemical castration drug, and then you move on to surgeries through, one visit to a counselor after getting the drugs and this kind of thing, and then you start chopping off body parts, removing breasts and penises and castrating, hysterectomies on kids. It's absolutely ridiculous, and that is why people around this country are doing this. They're barring gender-affirming care for minors. Maybe teens aren't depressed because of phones, but because, in Taylor Wren's words, we're living in a late-stage capitalist hellscape during an ongoing deadly pandemic with record wealth inequality, zero social safety net, job security, as climate change cooks the world. The doomer narrative pushed at Westborough schools. So what do our teachers, pediatricians, pharma doctors, psychiatrists, hospitals offer the depressed youth? Well, they offer them something so that they can take their parents' money, the taxpayers' money, because all of this stuff is subsidized by taxpayers. It's all paid for. You can't groom them too young. Let's tell you all the LGBTQ plus options in a preschool. After all, it's all about inclusion. No one should feel left out. What are your pronouns now? No need to fret. You can always change them again after recess. Transhausen by
Wrap up.
proxy. Mother's not
Wrap
getting
up.
enough.
Wrap up.
Oh,
That's-
we could
that's
just
3
leave
minutes.
it there at 3.
Questions?
I think you have a point of order question in the audience. I don't know if you want to take it, Mr. Chair.
This is my first time that I haven't met like this. May I speak or?
No.
Typically, at the beginning of the meeting, we said no, there would be no public comment. Do you have a question about process? But we are not taking comments on the articles.
Okay.
I mentioned at our next select board meeting on the 12th, there is open forum at the beginning of the meeting. And then, of course, at town meeting, there will be comments, the ability to make comments then.
Thank you, Sean.
Yep, no, thank you, checking.
I have one, it's a bit more of a technical question, Boyd, but in multiple of your articles, you're citing sources and quotes, and I wanted to verify you had written permission if it's needed for any of those, because we're going to be publishing this, and I was concerned about whether...
No, I don't.
Okay. So, I don't believe you, I mean, here there's a direct
I think
quote.
most of these people that are fighting these issues are more than willing to share their information with the public. If you want to point out, send me an email or something like that, I'll do due diligence on getting anything you want, or trying to get anything you want.
Okay. My concern is, as
Copyright protected.
the AFC publishes this document, is that we don't publish things we don't have that would be copyrighted. I don't know that your stuff is, but it's a concern that seeing that you're quoting and also citing web pages, and maybe that's fine. But I didn't know if you knew. Okay. Okay, thanks.
Sean, if I may?
Yes.
Just a general comment, not to the proponent, but just in general, I would just say that my view on this is that, first of all, I believe that it's state law that defines what sort of medical care individuals can have, and I'm perfectly comfortable with that. I'm also very comfortable and am surprised, given the spirit of this, that we would be asking our town's legislative body to rule on a very, very personal matter that belongs in a family, and one that I cannot imagine how is difficult to process through as a family, certainly as a minor. So certainly I'm not supportive of this. I don't think it belongs on here, and I think even if the town were to contemplate it, it would probably be illegal and kicked out the door by the Attorney General from the beginning. Thank you.
Other comments? Sort of a general question for Mr. Conklin. If these articles are defeated at town meeting, would there be an expectation that they would not be coming back before the town meeting?
I would expect that they wouldn't, as the zero carbon sustainable Westborough article that I put on last year has not reappeared.
Thank you. Any other?
36.
Article 37.
37.
End Westborough Town and Schools' probable future mandates. To see if the town will vote on a non-binding petition to end Westborough Town and Schools' probable future mandates for vaccinations, vaccine passports, masking, remote learning, social distancing, business closures, and restricting access or take any other action thereon. 5 ethical objections to mandatory vaccination during COVID-19 pandemic, including that mandatory vaccination violates the Nuremberg Code, that it is a coercive, that it violates informed consent, that it is discriminatory, and that it infringes civil liberties. The Nuremberg Code is a set of principles for the ethics of human experimentation delineated in the 1947 Nazi case of United States versus Brandt et al. Principle 1 emphasizes that voluntary consent is essential for human participation in research. Vaccination mandates violate the Nuremberg Code because COVID-19 vaccines are experimental and because mandates undermine the voluntariness of informed consent. So in the Westborough schools, in the Westborough Health Department, the Westborough Library, everybody was pushing vaccination clinics. I understand that there's a lot of grant money involved in this, and that everything that comes down from the feds and to the state and to Westborough, it pretty much whole cloth gets implemented here. And I'd like to see that change. I would like to see actually that instead of just doing what the betters tell the people that are in charge here in Westborough to do, that maybe they could separate themselves from the path that is often coming down from the feds and from the state. Mandatory vaccination compels people to get vaccinated by, for instance, threatening them with job loss or a fine if they aren't vaccinated. And thus, all these businesses that were closed here in Westborough, I don't have the numbers on who's gone out of business, how many people, their total lives have been destroyed by the business closures, or having to do outside dining, or various things that were done here. So back with the
Wrap up.
Okay.
Okay. Questions or comments regarding Article 37?
Sean?
Yes.
Yes.
I'd just like to remind the community, if they're not aware, that currently right now there is a measles outbreak in southern Florida as a result of lack of vaccination in that area. And the state Surgeon General right now is being pursued to be removed as a result of a disease that is extremely deadly for children, and is now proliferating in a country that was without measles for over 30 years. So it's pretty shocking to hear this kind of rhetoric coming into our town in regards to protecting our children and protecting those that are most vulnerable in our community.
We have Alan and Beth.
Yeah, Alan and then Beth. Thank you.
Yeah, I just have a comment to make regarding this, for the benefit of those watching and who might watch this later. Just as the state law tells us that the select board cannot vote to keep any of the citizens' petitions off the warrant because we must follow state law. And therefore, select board didn't even vote on it because there's no point in debating it. We as part of our oath of office, we, promise to uphold state law and the state and federal constitutions. So is the case when it comes to public health regulations from the federal government and from the state. And so while this is non-binding, the very nature of this is encouraging the town to basically violate state and federal law in far as taking an action. I won't get into the misunderstanding and presentation of facts and information by the proponent, but I just wanted the folks and who will be hearing this at the floor of town meeting or watching this meeting to understand that.
All right. Thank you, Alan. Beth.
I just want to say from a medical point of view, prior to 1950, before the measles, mumps, rubella vaccines were created, there were more than 500 deaths per year due to measles alone. In addition, 500,000 people used to get the measles every year, and it caused a lot of significant health impairments, and along with mumps and rubella. And there's no reason we should go back in history and subject people to some of these horrific diseases. We don't want to see smallpox again.
Another statement.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or questions?
I guess my question is, how do you expect people to vote for something that is so non-definite like this, because it's probable future mandates? But I mean, nobody knew in 2016 that the COVID outbreak would be what it was. So I don't understand how one could vote for something that's as non-definitive as this.
Well, the idea is that for having the there were many states in the United States that did not follow the feds. So it's not a mandate, a lot of this stuff. So what I'm asking is for the citizens of Westborough to be able to vote on this non-binding resolution so that they might give you, the leaders of Westborough and the health department, the select board, the message that, you know, they think that they can handle making that decision on their own without you imposing it upon them, whether it's the health department or the select board. As it turned out, the Fed said something, the state carried it forward, and then the select board, the school committee, the Westborough Health Department, Public Health, they brought it directly to the citizens. If we could, like some of the other states of the union, if we could allow the citizens to decide what they thought was safe as far as masking, as far as dining for these restaurant closures and putting people out of business and this kind of thing, and putting people out of work for whatever. If you mandate, I don't know if you mandated people had to be vaccinated, but the Westborough schools, the teachers union drove most of the policy in the states, by the feds and by the state. It was the teachers union that did a lot of the damage to the students by not feeling safe themselves. And so they did and kept going all of the precautionary measures. So that's what I'm getting at here. Allow the citizens to make that choice instead of following the state and the Fed with whatever they come up with. As we see, the social distancing, as far as I'm concerned, the research that I look at did nothing. The vaccinations, as far as I'm concerned, for the population of students, it was absolutely terrible that anyone under 40 would actually take that vaccine. There was no need for it whatsoever. The social distancing, the business closures,
Okay, I
all of
don't
it.
think you're answering my question. You're doing diatribe on
Okay.
anti-vaxxing, but and ignoring the deaths that happened from that significant.
I'm not saying
as well.
nobody died. Everybody,
I'm
there's
done.
people that die of flu every year.
I was
And they've just said that COVID-19 is now, you should be treated just like the flu. That came out this week, I believe.
because of the existing strain. Okay, let's move on.
Questions? No. All right, on to Article 38.
Senior Center Preservation. To see if the town will vote on a non-binding petition to leave the senior center alone and not move the location, keep it as it is where it is. We in town value the current location and building and do not want to relocate to the 1500 Union Street Community Center in the process of build-out, We don't want our beautiful senior center turned into another affordable housing complex by the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust. The bait and switch process is already coming to light. The Council on Aging Senior Center was promised more square footage initially, and it appears that has turned into the same square footage in recent public forums. We do not want to be located in the middle of an urban parking lot. If we want to mix it up with the youngsters, we'll come and visit you over at the community center, the new one on 1500 Union. They paved paradise and put up a parking lot with a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swimming hot spot. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. All right. So there's a lot of, I know the Council on Aging voted unanimously. I was there at the meeting for buying into the 1500 Union. The location where the current senior center is in the middle of the forest there, all by itself, is a wonderful location. With the community center coming online, there's plenty of room for the senior center to have any larger gathering take place at the larger venue that's going to be the community center. I guess my 3 minutes is probably about up. Anyways, thanks.
Okay. Any questions or comments on Article 38? Alan?
Comment?
Start with Alan?
Yes, so the proponent seems to be under the impression that there's some big plan for specific use of the current senior center property. I just want to clarify that's not the case. So yes, the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust, which is actively working with the Westborough Housing Authority to identify opportunities to develop land currently owned and intended for affordable housing by the Westborough Housing Authority to develop that, and the senior centers adjacent to it. The Westborough Affordable Housing Trust did vote to express its interest in the property. Should the town decide that there is no other use for the property and to put that property up for sale? There's no concept, there's no plan. Should the town at some point in the future decide there's no municipal or other desired use for the property, and offer and determine that its best future is to put that property up for sale, then at that point in time, the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust would evaluate property, the offer, the suitability, and how it fits in, and would make a decision if the Housing Trust actually wanted to place a bid or make an offer on the property. So it was just, we were asked a question if it's something we might be interested in the future, and the trust voted unanimously that yes, should all of these other things come to play and the property potentially become available, that we would have an interest in exploring whether or not to acquire the property.
That's a comment.
Sounded
That's a
like
comment.
Yep. Any other? Yes, Patrick.
Thank you, Sean. Yeah, I guess two comments here. One is, first of all, you seem to like to use the term bait and switch in our town community and our town politics, and I'll assure you that everyone in this room that is associated with the board takes the open meeting laws very seriously, and everything that has been described by you has been an open meeting. We are not baiting and switching. This is all public knowledge, what is going on. And I, for one, just caution you, as it's a very dangerous statement to say that we are baiting and switching anything. My other point is that I spend a lot of time down at the senior center, and it's quite clear that the seniors of our community are actually very supportive of a new senior center. I don't know how much time you spend down there. I don't think I've ever seen
Is
you
that a
down there.
question?
No, not a question.
Well, it sounded like a question.
No, I said I don't know how much time you spend down there. I've never seen you down there.
Yes, Shelby.
Yeah, so I actually do have a question for you, Mr. Conklin. It's unclear to me in the second sentence of the article information, you wrote, we don't want our beautiful senior center turned into another affordable housing complex by the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust. So my question to you is this an article advocating against affordable housing, or are you advocating for seniors? It's unclear to me.
Well, I would say I'm advocating to save money. We already have a senior center that's that I think is perfectly fine, and like I said, for larger venues, which seem to be the impetus of the move, it can be accommodated in the 1500 Union Street property for larger events of the senior center. So they've already got the commercial kitchen in there. It seems like the town of Westborough once again is spending a whole lot of money to make something that they've already got.
So we are spending a lot of money, and I'm appreciative of the taxpayer vote to move forward with the community center to better the experience for our seniors, as it was illustrated in the senior needs assessment. And certainly this will benefit all generations, so I am very supportive of that. I do want to call out that there is incorrect information in the article, so I'm not sure where you got that, but if you want to respond to this, feel free. You say that after your bait and switch comment, you say the Council on Aging was promised more square footage initially, and appears it's turned into the same square footage in recent public forums. So we haven't even built out, we haven't done an engagement process to determine the footprint of the first floor, let alone to contemplate actual programming that the seniors would benefit from on the second floor. So I'm curious to where you got your information.
Well, I understand that it's not set in stone yet. I'm talking about meetings that I've been to that previous to the senior center voting, the Council on Aging voting on this, to move the senior center to the 1500 Union Street property, the number of square footage that they were passing around in that meeting was about time and a half. It was about whatever the square footage was plus another 50%. Then later on, after they did actually pass it, I've been to meetings and heard that they were going to get, perhaps the same square footage, at least the same square footage. So this is the theoretical bait and switch that I'm talking about. I understand that nothing is set in stone. This is my opinion from trying to pay attention to what's going on here.
So I would just say that I think that you've misunderstood the information, and that we've been pretty clear. So you are misinformed, as is your article information.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. Could you reference the public forums you attended where it was noted that there was a reduction in the square footage that would be allotted to the senior center?
No, I didn't reference the perhaps general opinion that there was.
You said you attended meetings.
Yes.
Where it was
yes.
referenced that there would be back to the original square footage. I'm wondering if you could, as public meetings are typically recorded, I think folks in this audience would like to be able to go back and reference that.
I don't have the exact meeting or the exact date or the exact time.
Got it.
Could you generally speak to what committee or what meeting it was at?
What's that?
Could you speak to what committee, what meeting it was at?
Well, there's
And Facebook
for the
doesn't
1500 Union Street property, there has probably been maybe 10 different meetings that talk to it, let alone the public sales pitch for buying the 1500 Union Street property at 3 or 4 locations. And
Could you remember the committee where it was discussed that the senior center square footage in the community center would not increase?
No, I'm not saying it will not increase.
Well-
I'm not, it's like we said, it's not set in stone.
So, but you talked
So
about
what-
public meetings where this was referenced. I think people would
What
like to
I'm
be able to
talking-
go back and refer to those meetings.
Let me speak to the actual square footage question.
No, we're wondering that
I
you
understand.
have
I
mentioned that
understand
they
what
were
you're-
documented. That is
Yes,
the
you're
question
looking
being
for a
asked of
meeting.
you.
Yes, I understand you're looking for a time and a date and a meeting kind of thing.
So you don't have it.
What I'm saying is,
Okay.
is like
I
you
think
say.
we're done on this article.
Very good.
Article 39.
Golf Club preservation. To see if the town will vote on a non-binding resolution to leave the golf club building alone. Repairs needed, no heat pumps, no conversion of natural gas heating to electric, no electric rewiring for massive electrical heating load, no need to worry about retrofitting the balloon walls at this time. Fix the few trouble spots where the roof is currently leaking from ice dams and such. Bring the civic kitchen back or similar. There are those in authority positions in Westborough that feel compelled to electrify the town for climate change. Now, I don't know how Pete came out with you guys the select board, whether you guys voted 5-0 to give him all the money he wanted, or an open book, open check kind of thing for his zero carbon Westborough dreams. But aka zero carbon, net zero. So in my opinion, they feel the golf clubhouse must be destroyed to save it. I think we can save it without destroying it, cost effectively, and put it back into service as a restaurant to serve the community as it did in the recent past before the plumbing altercation occurred recently. So I went through the, also went through the document on the assessment and such. And then I understand that there's no big deal for the ADA requirements. Those can be perhaps done or not done or whatever, because nothing has changed hands in the town to trigger them for what would be the repairs that would have to be done. Anyways, that's it for
Okay.
39.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Why don't we start with Patrick? Sure.
So this time I do have a couple questions for you, Mr. Conklin.
Questions?
Yes.
Very good.
All right. So do you currently carry, or have you ever carried any degrees or certifications in architecture, engineering, or any building background whatsoever as far as certifications?
I just installed a couple of windows today.
Well, I installed a door today, so does that make me qualified to make these decisions?
Well, I think you asked a construction question.
Well, I was just asking if you have any background, a formal training in this area.
My father's family trade was suspended ceilings.
Okay, good to know. Admirable trade. For those that aren't aware, just taking one example of what that report said about balloon framing, because you referenced it, balloon framing is extremely dangerous, structurally as well as for fire prevention. I used one word when I saw that report in the select board meeting, and that is to blow it up with a stick of dynamite. That building is dangerous and has a lot of problems, and it is not sufficient as a public building for safety reasons, amongst many other reasons. And I find your article to be nothing more than an uneducated guess or perspective on what is an important building in our town that should be built to today's standards to be as safe and as welcoming and as useful as possible.
Once again, that was a question.
No, that was a statement.
Oh,
Thank you.
do we have a question so I can have a rebuttal?
No, I gave you a question about your credentials. And you
I actually do have a question, if I may,
Yes.
Mr. Chair. Thank you. So I'm a little confused because you start your article with, to see if the town will vote on a non-binding resolution to leave the golf club building alone, period. And then you go on to say repairs needed, yada, yada, yada. So are you asking to leave it alone, or are you asking to repair it as needed? It's confusing to me.
Not blow it up with a stick of dynamite, like Patrick wants to do.
Okay, so not blow it up, but repair it as needed. with-
As the same way with the library building.
Okay, thank you. So, for your benefit, Mr. Conklin, as well as the public, I'm thrilled to share that the town manager's office has updated the municipal building committee webpage. There is a golf club building project section under there now. There's a committee that's been appointed by the select board. Their meetings have started. There are photographs of the tour of the building that was part of the initial reuse committee, of which I thank all those members for serving,
Yes, I've
Oh.
seen that and gone through it.
along with their recommendations. And of course, the building assessment is there. So being that we're getting a fresh start on that building and that work is just beginning, for anyone, including yourself, who are interested, I encourage you to attend. All the municipal building committee meetings are recorded by our friends at Westborough TV, and now is a great time to get involved with that project and be part of it from the start and learn all the facts from the beginning. And no
Oh,
decision.
I've tried to be involved
Actually, it's
from
not
the
a
start.
question. It's not a question. So, and all the decisions actually haven't been made. Our town manager and select board have been very clear about that. We're in the process of feasibility and design, and it's a great opportunity to get involved, understand what's going on, and ask questions. But a town meeting warrant article is not the place, because that work is just beginning.
Well, if the
Again,
if the
it wasn't
town
a question. Thank
decides
you so
that
much, Mr. Chair.
to send you a message that they'd like to keep the building, it's been there for, what is it, 200 years old or something like that?
No. Also, I mean, this article
It's
is
been moved
non-binding.
to the place or
so-
something?
All right, any other questions on, or comments on Article 39? None? Okay, Article 40.
To see if the town will vote on a non-binding resolution to leave the library building alone. Once again, repair is needed. Roofs, windows, carpets, no heat pumps, no conversion of natural gas heating to electric, no electrical rewiring for the massive draw of the electric heating for the zero carbon. I think we do that. The slate roofing on the original 1908 building can be removed, the roof sheeting and fascia replaced, repaired as needed, and the slate tiles reinstalled. It's the nails that are degrading, so the tiles are falling off. And I have repaired redone a roof before, Patrick. The roof on the addition can be redone also. This is the not the old building, but the newer building that apparently needs to be redone. The windows can be repaired one at a time without causing any downtime in the library operations. Parking easements perhaps can be renegotiated with the church next door. I was at the library trustees meeting last week, and apparently that's in process, so that's great. We will soon see the third iteration of the pig with different lipstick. It is still the same pig. How many times must the town vote down the same project from LPAA and Vertex that the library trustees and library building committee relentlessly present? And as I see, I'm not sure if the select board went 5-0 for approving their latest $1 million article. That should be my 3 minutes for this one.
You done? Okay. All right, questions? Yes, Patrick, yes.
Yeah, I'll just make a comment. We haven't voted on the articles yet, so just so you're aware, that'll be at our next board meeting. I expect that we'll be voting on most, if not all, of the articles. I would just say that I'm a strong supporter of this, and I feel that it's really important that the community be, my opinion is that the library committee did exactly what town meeting was looking for. It was quite clear that they did not want to tear down the 1988 edition, but it was also clear that the town recognized that there's significant lacking capabilities of that building for not only the ADA piece, which you seem to be fondly against.
No,
but
there's no ADA that I read off in this article.
That's fine, but in the past you've spoken
Yes,
to that.
I've been told that the ADA is not something to worry about.
And I guess my question to you, you mentioned roofing and that you've roofed before. Has your roofing experience been on slate roofs?
It's been on tile, California tile, cement.
Okay. Yep. So I mean,
Not at a 45-degree slant, 3-to-1 ratio.
so this particular roof, being of slate, build, it's well over 100 years old, and it's deteriorating. And
The slate doesn't deteriorate.
No, the slate doesn't, but the copper nails that you
Yes,
use to hold them
that's
down
why
do
you'd
deteriorate.
have to pull the slate.
So
then
in wind damage and all sorts of other things
Yes,
that happen
indeed,
over 100
indeed,
years.
Yes.
My point is
1
this.
second, allow him to make his comment.
My point is this, is that buildings deteriorate, and we as a community need to be champions and foster the upkeep and care of our buildings. And this is one building in town that is extremely precious to this community. And we want to make sure it's that way for generations to come.
And the roof is in this article. It's like, yeah, full on. Let's take care of the roofs for both of them.
Well, I think you need to pay attention to their actual recommendation, because they've pared it back significantly from what the original rebuild was. It's about a third of what it was originally.
I think we've seen Project A, B.
my
and-
recommendation-
One second.
My recommendation to you is watch those sessions, attend those meetings, and hear and listen to what they're actually planning.
All right, thank you. Yes.
Somebody else? No? I just wanted to report that at our February 22nd meeting, the AFC voted 8-0-0 in favor of the current library repair project, and that I don't quite understand, when we have an article already on the warrant for this, why we need the second article at the end. Because I think it's more effective and a better use of people's time to thoroughly discuss the library repair during the library repair article and not an opinion poll. Because the library repair article, people will actually be able to vote whether they are in favor of spending their money, funding it. It's a borrow, it's real money, and it's not just a doodle poll.
Well, I think there's
I
some
don't know,
pork.
that was was it a question? It was not a question.
I think there's some pork in that one.
So, let me say, yes, the select board, our expectation is we will be voting on the library repair article on the 12th. I am a member of the library building committee. I support the library repair project unequivocally. Thank you very much. Article 41.
Thanks again for hearing us tonight. Ted Gilbert, 26 Charles Street. Article 41, new affordable housing units located equally throughout the town. To see if the town will support a resolution that all new affordable housing units in Westborough be located equally throughout the entire town. We on the other side of the tracks are concerned that the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust has a penchant for keeping all affordable housing units out of the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust members' backyards. The cul-de-sac land, 200 feet elevation off of Main Street here, towards the highway. So to counter the NIMBY, not in my backyard behavior of the trust that we see, we would like to see them sharing the wealth of the diversity, equity, and inclusion that they so often talk about, that these units be dispersed throughout the town. Now, I understand the MBTA corridor requires a half mile away from public transportation, but I mean, it's 2024. Why can't these individuals who are living in these affordable housing units benefit from remote jobs or internet jobs? Plus, there are a lot of benefits to living close in the cul-de-sac areas of town, away from the downtown. There are a lot of other benefits to having those units and those individuals located throughout the town, not just down in one area. To me, it's segregated that way.
So instead of creating a pocket of low-income housing, what better way to serve the low-income housing by mixing it up with the high-income housing, so that the people in the low-income housing can probably learn from the high-income housers how to make it in the world.
Any questions?
You done? Okay.
Yep.
All right, open it up to
Alan
questions.
has a
Yes.
comment.
Oh, Alan, yes, please.
Yes, good evening. So, in reading this article, and of course the article comments and the accusation of NIMBYism among the trust, I'll point out that the trust currently has trustees representing communities from throughout the town of Westborough, including communities where we have people living close and proximate to some of our active and some currently potential sites. It's disappointing that the proponent of the article hasn't attended meetings or asked any questions about the work of the trust. And so the public's aware, the trust has an active project at 3 Baylor Avenue. We just completed a project in which we preserved an existing affordable unit on Lawton's Way. We are exploring project opportunities on Beach Street with a property we acquired out of a bankruptcy auction at a good value, opportunities for potential development and High Street extension, and existing Westborough Housing Authority property that would only be used for affordable housing on Rogers Road. And as far as why not in other neighborhoods, the trust has explored opportunities for viability and financial feasibility and timing in the Belknap and Upton Road areas, in those Lackey Street, Spring Street areas. We were actually approached by a developer looking at involved in property or owning property in the Arch Street, Glen Street area, as well as a developer on with property owned on Lyman Street. And so, while there's a small issue of wording in the article, the Housing Trust actually supports the intent and the motivation behind it. Affordable housing should be throughout. I'll point out that several years ago, Westborough Town Meeting had the foresight and the wisdom to vote for zoning legislation and zoning bylaws that provide inclusionary zoning for affordable housing that state that any residential development must have at least 10% of their units affordable and comparable to the market rate units. And that starts with the 5th unit. So unit number 5, and when you calculate how many units you need, you have to round up. So if you're building a residential development, unit number 5 must be affordable, unit number 11 and unit number 21, et cetera, which means you would have affordable housing at least 10%, but as high as 19%, 19.5% in those types of residential development. And so the town is involved there. Additionally, both the BPOD, the downtown business overlay district, the downtown planning overlay district, and the senior overlay districts have higher inclusionary zoning requirements, where the starting point for consideration is 20% of those residential units. As the trust looks to do its work, we want affordable housing to be available in multiple styles, multiple areas of town, every area of town, in ways that best meet the needs of those who affordable housing is intended to serve. And yes, well, some folks who would qualify and be able to move into affordable housing that is larger in certain neighborhoods, many who need affordable housing have other issues such as not being 2-car families or being dependent on public transportation for access to work. So areas where they're also walkable to shops and services, as well as public transportation fit it. Additionally, the trust is committed to the community as one of our guiding principles to follow the guidance that is provided in the town's strategic plan, the master plan, as well as we are looking to respond to a variety of housing needs identified in the townwide senior assessment. And so, while the Housing Trust has trouble with the word equal in this because of what that implies, we would look to potentially provide an amendment to this on town meeting floor to better reflect that, yes, we agree that affordable housing of different types and to meet different needs be located throughout the town, as is already the town's intent and desire, and that but that the article reflect the very nature of not only affordable housing development, but how housing development happens and housing production happens as well. Additionally, for the public's education, the planning board and planning department is working on a housing production plan which will update the town's assessment of current housing availability for current housing needs and priorities. The Housing Trust believes strongly in that work and has provided some of the funding and is partnering with the planning board and the planning department to have that, have the outside experts come in and do the data analysis and provide that information and provide guidance and direction. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alan. Any questions or comments, Patrick?
Yeah, I'll just make a comment. First of all, I'm very impressed with the Affordable Housing Trust and the all the affordable housing that's provided in our town and the future planning that they're doing. I will just make sure that I clarify, Mr. Gilbert, you had made a point about MBTA communities. Just want to clarify what's happening here. And Article 32 is specifically providing a zoning overlay to a couple of sections of town that are already high density areas. There is no plans and no intent for the town to build any large capacity areas in those areas. And our plan has also been vetted by the state, and we're looking for, in order to comply with the MBTA Communities Act, which was enacted by Charlie Baker as one of his last acts before he left as governor, was to that we have to ratify this by the end of the year. Otherwise, the town will be ineligible for many state grants that are highly important to our community, such as the rebuilding of the Otis Street corridor area up on Route 9 to provide safe walking transportation between some of our larger resident areas that are affected by this MBTA Communities Act. So I encourage you to listen into some of these meetings and learn more about what's going on, because I think you'll see that there's a lot of great conversation and there's a lot of good that will come out of that particular thing. And just one other comment, the reason why the state is doing this is because there's a shortfall of over 200,000 units in the state right now, housing units in the state right now. So they're forcing this on all MBTA communities and their neighboring communities. So it's not just Westborough, this is across the state.
Okay, just can I ask one
Sure.
question? So, but just to be clear, the MBTA Corridors Act is over here, and then the Affordable Housing Trust of Westborough is siloed from that.
There's
right?
no silo. The affordable, as you just heard from member Edinburgh, the
Yeah.
Affordable Housing Trust looks for opportunities throughout the town. There's no
No, not
siloing.
siloed in terms of geography or location, but in just terms of the initiative and the monies behind it.
I'm not sure what you mean by the money's behind it, but there's no siloing of the effort. One is simply to comply with the state zoning regulations in order for us to be eligible for potentially hundreds, if not millions of dollars of grant money, which I, for one, as a taxpayer, would love to be able to take advantage of for these. I don't want to end up having that tax bill go up any higher. And the work that the Affordable Housing Trust does is under their charter to identify, as you know, Alan just described so well, all of the opportunities that they're focused on.
Okay, and ask the shuttle, I guess it is. I've heard Alan mention that there is a shuttle that only goes in certain areas of the town.
You're
Is that correct?
talking about VIA.
That's it, via. Yeah, can that be expanded to all of the areas
I
of
would
the
love
town?
to see it
So
expanded.
that there's no limit based on, okay, but you know, you're not within the VIA.
I think Shelby's-
Well,
Yeah.
VIA
So-
is run by the Worcester Regional Transit Authority.
Yeah.
It's
And-
not run by Westborough.
Right.
Okay.
And I would add.
If I may add,
Oh, go ahead, Alan.
so the town has, and myself as an individual citizen have asked the WRTA to look at expanding the VIA service. It's their service, it's their control. They have expanded it into parts of Shrewsbury and parts of Northborough as well. Additionally, it's important to know that while the VIA service is running and has been committed to for the next fiscal year starting July 1st, that after that point, it's unclear if there will be funding for that service.
Right?
There's also some.
Thank you. I think we're done on this article.
Okay, thank you.
Article 42.
Repeal the stormwater tax. To see if the town will vote on a non-binding petition to repeal the stormwater tax. This article makes null and void the stormwater tax. The Department of Public Works, DPW, can put an article on the warrant, as they have always done in the past, for the required funds it needs. If they need to have a separate fund so that they can acquire grant funds and show that they have money in hand to get those grant funds, they should put an article on the warrant to set up that fund. I'm sure the citizens of Westborough will comply with their wishes. There's no need to set up a separate accounting for this thing, have everybody in town pay a separate bill, and this kind of thing. It's all coming out of the taxpayers of Westborough one way or another. We don't need another bill to align with to add to the vehicle bill that we've gotten and we're paying downstairs. This tax is being sold to the citizenry on the premise as equity. Please, enough already with the equity. We are paying taxes. We are paying for all the DPW does. This is just another way for the management of Westborough to appear, perhaps, well, one can only guess, to have a lower tax rate on the property tax by moving it to another location, so that when we put up our spreadsheet and compare our towns, that maybe it appears that we're not paying as high taxes as we are. I don't know, by talking to the people involved in this thing, what the actual outcome is on making it more equitable. Whether anybody actually ran the numbers as to what people are paying now, the businesses and the homeowners of Westborough, and how their actual bill would be different with this added accounting system put into place in the town of Westborough. I understand there's a number of towns in this area that have also put the stormwater tax in. I guess if they can do it, I guess we can too. Chris Payant over there at DPW said, hey, we're just trying to see, what this thing would look like. We can stop it at any time. So here I am, trying to stop it at any time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll start the comments on this one. So the stormwater tax, so currently anything that is taxed across Westborough, any items or free cash, are supported 70% by the residents of the town and 30% by commercial industrial base of the town. The stormwater tax is an opportunity to try and make that more equitable by spreading this cost across participants by their square footage. So it would be the square footage, your footprint of your house, plus all other impervious space like your driveway, things of that nature. So when you look at the numbers on this tax, over half the burden is placed on the industrial and commercial aspects of town, and less than 50% is placed on the homeowners. It was an opportunity to try and place the burden more appropriately on those who are utilizing or requiring those services. I fully support the stormwater tax. It also allows us, I think, rather than passing piecemeal articles at town, it allows us to do more future planning for stormwater management. I believe it is going to be very beneficial to the town, and we'll see that as it's enacted over the coming years. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Patrick.
Yeah, I don't know if my number is correct. DPW directors presented to us numerous times, so I should have this number. But I believe we have something like well over 500 culverts and ravines and swales and whatnot that need to be managed in our town. And I'm not sure if maybe you could answer this question, if you've ever had a cellar that's flooded. Or maybe better yet, I know you ride a bike around town, so I'm sure you've seen how the the railroad bridge floods out every once in a while. And sometimes it's so bad that cars can't get by and people can't get to work. This will help alleviate that. One of the big projects that we're talking about right now is the clean out of the culvert that goes all the way down to Cedar Swamp and getting the state to help us with that. And this fund, this stormwater fund, will help with those type of activities to prevent road damage, to prevent lack of ability for people to go to work, deal with emergency issues, just general commuting around town, as well as if you've ever, again, had a cellar flood, it can be extremely costly to the individual. So by preventing stormwater runoff impacting our community, or limiting it, is a very good idea. And Sean already laid it out. I mean, it's the work that we need to get done. And instead of piecemealing it, let's let our DPW build out a plan over time that they can then go execute against in a logical way, as opposed to having to be reactionary on an annual basis, as opposed to reactionary when they actually need to deal with the issues.
Once again, the town of Westborough has been managing its wastewater, stormwater for
Wastewater's not
250
stormwater,
years.
so let's just be clear here.
Stormwater
Yeah.
for 250 years. And there's nothing in this that I'm implying that changes any of that. I'm all for managing everything you're talking about and having it bigger, better, and whatever, more effective kind of thing. I just have issue with the way you're doing it as far as giving everybody another bill, and instead of just having, if the DPW needs to have a $10 million account with $10 million in it, come to the town meeting to have that account instead of trying to build something up with the taxpayers. The taxpayers are paying whatever tax the town of Westborough comes up with in either case. There's no need for another
So
bill.
to be clear, the account's not going to hit $10 million. Let's just make sure that is not what's going
whatever
to happen.
they need. If it's $2 million, if it's
But-
$1 million. I heard at the meetings, I went to a couple of them, and the idea was to get a fund. It seemed about $1 million.
This saves, just to be very clear here, this saves the residential taxpayers, as Sean just laid out. So what you're proposing actually won't save the taxpayers.
Well,
just to be clear here.
I'm worried about the businesses. Just because you're moving the tax burden from the taxpayers to the businesses doesn't mean you're going to cause the businesses to run out of town and the taxpayers end up with a lot more
I'm
taxes.
not worried about that at all as a result of this.
There's certainly a lot of
Yes.
vacant business space in town.
All right, Sean. Oh, yes, right, thank you.
So I've been trying to avoid saying anything, mainly because I think having this discussion about a bunch of non-binding articles is a colossal waste of time. However, I think we're giving Mr. Conklin too much airtime by even responding to these items. However, this is one I actually agree with him. I think when the businesses in town actually find out what they're going to spend for the stormwater tax, when the churches in town find out what they're going to spend on the stormwater tax, people are going to be upset. So forewarning, man, I promise myself I won't say any more tonight.
All right, thank you, Mr. Conklin.
Sorry. It's fine. No,
Now, why don't we move on?
let's do that.
Article 43.
Good evening.
Pardon me, are you standing in for the proponent of this
Yes,
article?
this
Okay,
is-
thank you.
Could you identify
Can you hear
yourself
me?
for the record?
Hi, my name is Julie Squires. I live at 15 State Street. Thank you for the opportunity tonight to present the warrant petition submitted regarding the library teen room. As a lifelong resident of Westborough, I was very sad to hear from some elders in town that have been going to the library every day for as long as I can remember, enjoying sitting in the front bright room, reading the newspaper, seeing people come and go, which is sometimes the only source of connection some people may have in a day. as well as moving the ladies' book club to the windowless room near the children's room. You talk about building an $8 million multi-generational community center, building with the intention of bringing our residents together. The library is also a source of community building, and yet we are segregating portions of the library to only one age group, an age group that is in school 181 days a year. I have emailed the library trustees, the library director regarding this, as well as attended library trustee meeting with my request. They suggested that more people could make this suggestion and they might consider it. I thought it would be most effective to take a vote at town meeting with the residents that fund the library to make it known how they feel. The library should be an inviting, welcoming place for all. I would like to see the front of the library open to all residents to use it as it has always been. I ask for your support tonight.
Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, just one quick comment. I don't know if you've been following. Oh, Alan, did you have something?
Yeah, I think you were actually going to say what I was going to say. My understanding from all of the presentations and discussions we've had with the projects is that the motivation for moving the teens up front is because when they gather and do homework, there were complaints, many complaints of the volume were being disruptive to other patrons. And so by moving them to the front, they were isolating. And I think as John was about to say, the current plan for library renovation has a teen room in the back first floor of the library, I believe, that would be separated by some wall and some glass wall to prevent the sound issue from being a problem in the future. And the current proposed plan from the library has the reading room and the use of the fireplace as a sitting room and reading room being restored.
That's correct. That's correct. So, so if you are in support of this article, I would recommend also voting in support of the library repair project. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Article 44.
Hi there, I'm Susan Reynolds from 50 Upton Road. Sorry, I manage a few things here. This is, yes, a non-binding request. Town meeting cannot compel the school committee to take action. However, there's been multiple school committee meetings where there have been many things said about the sex education that's occurring in the school system. So this article is more about parents' rights and protecting our children and the expectations of the public schools regarding sex education. Many people aren't aware that in 1997, Mass General Law was passed enabling parents to opt out of human sex education and human sexuality issues, which is what we call them, issues, all right? Many recall maybe their early days in school when they learned about the changes that would occur in their body at a young age. But right now, human sexuality issues have exceeded much of what we ever learned in school. Now the teenagers know much more about sexuality. They will tell us that they can teach us much more about sexuality than any of us know. So, you know, we've had a long history here, and, you know, topics have grown. We're covering many, many more genders. Many people feel that the gender discussions are a theory, and that number one, you're born either with sperm or with an egg, ova, all right? We all had parents, but over time, things have changed, and people are really trying to understand where they fit in the world, and their brain is very active with a lot of this information at a young age when they may not be ready for it. Some of these gender topics, of course, have always existed, but they were never dealt with in the school systems. So I think it's important that our children that are born as boys and girls and have friends who are boys and girls They find it very destabilizing to all of a sudden learn that these could be changing and that they have, according to mass enrollment, we have non-binary students and we have, children who have to be called by other pronouns. So there is a way to opt out of these programs. I'd really like it to be an opt-in, that everybody's fully aware of all the sexuality issues that the children are being taught. But, there are questions, and to opt out, you can send a letter. So I'll be educating people how they can send a letter to the principals asking to be opt out. And that has to occur each year, because at different ages, you may feel differently. So, for example, one of the opt-out requests could be, please respect our child's constitutional right to privacy and do not ask our child to disclose his or her sexual orientation, gender identity, or personal pronouns. What grade do you think that should start in? Should we be doing that in elementary grades? Something for the parents to think about their children. This is parents' rights. Then another thing is, please exempt our child from any surveys that ask about our child's sexual orientation, gender identity, mental health.
Please wrap up.
Okay, because this particular one certainly does publish all the information as well as the gender preferences. I mean, if 31% of our kids in high school are saying that they're lesbians, that is information that should be opt-in, not opt-out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have questions? Pardon. Do we have questions?
So I don't have a question, but I would like to make a comment. So
Sure.
as a parent with children in 3 different Westborough schools, and also someone
Could
who
you
grew
speak
up
into
in...
the microphone? Just
Yes.
for-
I have a really hard time
I know,
doing
that's
that.
okay.
I'm
For-
also a hand
People are
talker.
watching too, so that's okay.
As someone who's educated in the 80s and 90s in an incredibly conservative state, I will tell you that when I was in school, I learned that, Pluto was a planet and a lot of things that are no longer the case and my children are no longer taught. I also appreciate that I don't have to opt into math and science for my children. They are taught basic education. They're also taught to respect other people regardless of their choices. I have no issues with any of the education my children are receiving. They're taught to respect people. They are taught to respect other people's bodies and other people's choices. And we as parents are given the opportunity to opt out if we do not understand or we do not agree with what is being taught in school. I don't think there's any reason why I should have to opt into any portion of my child's education. And that goes for my high schooler, my 6th grader, or my 2nd grader. All of those children are receiving basic education that teach them to fundamentally respect other people.
Okay, I'm not sure about what the opt-in case law is. I'm trying to look at that, but things have changed over the last 25, 30 years. We used to always had to opt out. So anyway, it's just something to consider, because silence is a form of consent if you do not opt out, if you aren't even aware.
Okay. And I guess that's a good point. At this point, we don't know that this actually is even legal, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we're being asked to vote on something that may not even be legal.
Well, wait a minute. I'm sorry. What is not
I
even
believe
legal?
we are required to teach health within our public schools by DESE, and so we would not be even allowed to employ this if the entire town was interested in it.
Well, 3,700 students in the city of Worcester opted out of sex education and human sexuality issues.
They were
So we have the right
required
to
to
do
opt
that.
out. There
Huh?
is, no town is allowed to set up an opt-in policy for health. My understanding is the state will not allow it. Is
Okay.
that correct?
I do not know the answer to that, but
That
I
seems
do
like an
think that
important
people are not
question.
even aware that there's an opt-out option, and the
I assure
education
you as
has
parents,
changed.
we are all told that there are options to opt out.
Yeah, we get emails, we get reminders through Parent Square now, so there are multiple opportunities to opt out.
Well, it's void of a lot of the curriculum realities, so many of the parents have their eyes opened by their children, and that's not considered favorable by many of them.
Okay, any final questions, comments on this?
I guess, yeah, I'm just, I have possibly 2 questions, but how does your proposed petition, whether it's legal or not, how do you reconcile that with parents who are not comfortable with having conversations with their children about any type of sexuality issues, even down to the nuts and bolts of what we would probably agree on are kind of the birds and the bees? how do you reconcile that if there was if the standard was opt-in, isn't that disadvantaging children?
This is our public school, and I do think the parents have the right. If they were in a private school, that might be a different situation. Not all private schools administer some of these surveys. Many of them do not. So I do think parents have a right to have those discussions at home with their family.
Totally agree that parents should be having those discussions. That wasn't my question. My question was for parents who are not comfortable in having those discussions with their children. I mean,
Well, that might be some nice outreach for the school to do with the parents.
so it would be okay for the schools to outreach to talk to the parents about here's what you should be, here's what the standard curriculum is.
Or
but-
be really clear on what the curriculum, and that's where the gray areas have been.
Okay, so my follow-up question is, what is your fear that's motivating this?
Well, as is shown, there's a lot of anxiety and depression in the schools, a
Based
lot
on
of gender.
sexuality and sex?
In general, there's a lot of topics covered on here that you're putting topics into children's minds that they may not be prepared for. That it's very destabilizing to all of a sudden learn that all of the people around you, if 31% of the girls are identifying as lesbians and you want to go to the prom, I mean, there's a lot going on right now with social media. It's not just social media.
Sure.
It's the school systems too. So I think we should just focus on basic education and ease up on the human sexuality issues. It is still a theory, and so I think it's wronging our children.
I'm sorry, sex is a theory, or what part
Gender
is a theory?
theory. Gender theory.
All right, so the issue is not about sex ed, it's about gender theory? That's really what you're honing in on here?
Yes, and, well, I mean, I don't know that I ever needed to sit in a class where anyone was showing how to use condoms and things like that. I mean, those were things that people kind of figured out. So we're really dumbing it down and normalizing the sex education for children, which is, it's not a good thing overall for society.
Okay.
I'm dying for my water, sorry.
Right, any other
If I may?
comments? Yes, Alan.
Okay, so I guess the last comment by the proponent confused me a little bit because she started talking about how we're now providing much more information to our students. And so I believe everyone at this meeting, when they were in high school, took U.S. history. It was fascinating to me as my daughter and now my son are going through the U.S. history program, how much more they learn about U.S. history than I did. And it's not just because more history exists, because many years, almost too many to count, have gone by between the time I took U.S. history and they took U.S. history, but because we also have new perspectives and different historians have looked back and interpreted events and provided viewpoints in events. And so expanding the curriculum and providing additional information is a benefit, right? So when the proponent talks about how we're covering many more topics and providing much more information and dealing with issues that we've never dealt with before, I want to say that to me that sounds like something to celebrate, because that's the point of education, is to bring out the ideas. And yes, in the time since I had what was called sex education starting in grade school, growing up many decades ago to now, there is a new understanding in science about gender and sexuality. We know it's not just XY chromosomes, that there's at least 24 chemicals and hormones in the brain that influence it. We don't know all of the details of how much, but there's new information about that. We also know that sometimes we didn't teach things in school simply because if we didn't understand it well, it was taboo and we didn't want to acknowledge it. And so now I think it's great that we're telling kids that it's not as simple as A and B, if you would, that there's nuance to it and people are different. And we know a lot more and we're sharing that better information. It seems like the objective. So on the one hand to say we're dumbing it down, and on the other hand to say we're sending, we're telling them too much, so it seems a little bit of a contradiction. But I think the fact that given that our knowledge as a society and our scientific knowledge is better and more informed, that we provide that newer information and new perspectives. The fact that some of these discussions were taboo because of, in some cases, the influence of specific religions, in other cases just because of misunderstanding or believing that somehow if you felt you weren't definitively male or female, you were wrong. I mean, there are countries, developed countries that used to chemically castrate people if they thought they were not gender conforming. That taboo is gone, and people can be individuals at appropriate age levels, can be given the opportunity to better understand themselves, others, and the society we live in.
Thank you.
And yes, the option is always there to opt out. And when you say the curriculum is unknown, last time I checked, the entire curriculum for the Westborough Public Schools is available on the website.
Okay. Thank
Well,
you.
we're
Thank
in
you.
a stage now where you used to go through puberty. That was a patient time. We all went through it.
Excuse me, that wasn't a question?
Oh, okay.
Tell you,
It was a statement?
why don't we wrap up this article? Thank you. Article 45.
Okay, Ted Gilbert, 26 Charles Street, Article 45. Establish a Townie Baby, what I call a Townie Baby Award. Establish a Townie Baby Award to encourage current residents of Westborough who are born in Westborough to start families and to have children, to see if the town will vote on a non-binding petition for the establishment of a taxpayer-funded award to encourage current residents of Westborough who are born themselves in Westborough to start families and to have children. The award is $1,000 per child. The intention and the goal of the award is to encourage family creation of Westborough residents who are born here with the overarching goal of cultural longevity of the shared values of the community. Furthermore, this effort hopes to encourage local families to stay here, thus preserving the shared cultural and historic memory of Westborough and its heritage. This is maybe an original idea and article, but I take it very seriously. I'm not a local or a townie in Westborough, but my grandparents were townies in Ipswich, Mass., and they decided to leave town and seek greener pastures. As a result, the rest of us in the family moved around a lot, me in particular, and I say from my own personal experience, and I think many of you can too, that there's a lot of benefit to meeting with people of a community who are local. There's a lot of local knowledge that we all benefit from, and it's real, and it's an asset. So let me just read the rest of this if I could. I don't know how much time I have, but the intent of this article is a simple one. For 25 years in New England, I have heard the same thing from parents as a financial advisor throughout New England, meeting with people, that their children are living in a different place from where they grew up, in part because they can't afford to live in the town that they grew up in. I think that there is value to the knowledge accumulated by people living in a community for a period of time, any community, and that it gets more valuable over time to them, sure, but to their family and to the community at large. If we care about our community, if we care about our newcomers to Westborough, but also care about our locals and our elderly, why not think of a way to incentivize people to stay, minor as it may be? There is value to duration of experience. There must be some kind of value to duration of experience because politicians regularly, we heard last night, sell their years of experience in a community as a positive attribute for their candidacy. Doctors and business people regularly sell their years of doing something, one specific procedure or activity, as a positive attribute. If there is value to history, which is an accounting of lived experience, then there must be value to the knowledge base of the people who have lived in one place. The $1,000 is modest, but it is meaningful. It's not meant to be the thing that they are driven to decide to stay in Westborough. But similarly, when you buy a house, it's remarkable that somebody might like the paint in the kitchen, and that's what they decide to buy a house because of something like that. That seems more of an emotional related decision.
Please wrap up.
Yep. Okay. So, I mean, there are examples throughout the world of this kind of thing. Kaimina in Hawaii. There are discounts for local people to return to Hawaii.
All right,
if they've
thank
done
you.
that.
Thank you.
And Famille Nombreuse in France.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, comments, questions? We'll start with Walter.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess I have a question with your wording, because I would suspect there aren't very many children born in Westborough. We don't have a hospital. For
Yeah,
instance,
so-
my
so-
children were
sure.
born in Framingham, not...
Easy, yeah. So what it means is one of the parents, so the baby is actually is living in, the residence will be. It doesn't mean the actual birth
So
occurs.
shouldn't it
in
be
Westborough.
worded as such if you want
Yeah.
someone to vote?
I think I'm using kind of a colloquialism there, you know, and I think most people say, well, I'm from this place. Usually it doesn't mean necessarily that they were, sometimes, but, you know, they're born, I was actually born at the Worcester Hospital.
Says current resident.
They says establish a Townie Baby Award for current residents who were born in Westborough, very specifically, so that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, so
because
if
it's
one of their
confusing to me.
one of their parents was born in Westborough too.
The
right.
baby's a resident.
You're missing the point.
Either that or you are.
Okay, just.
I think Mr. Leslie is trying to say that with Westborough not having a hospital, being born in Westborough, your words in this petition,
Sure.
is that really what you mean? No, yes, current residents born in Westborough.
Yeah.
So it's pretty narrow. That's
Okay,
what that's what you intend it to be?
Neither the babies nor their parents were born in Westborough.
Not actually born.
Unless they're born at
Maybe
home.
born, maybe not. But this is this is their home. This is their first home.
Residence, they have a residence.
After
address
birth, this is their
in
first
Westborough.
home. And
Yes.
How is it that there's another person at the podium when the proponent is the one supposedly presenting you an article?
It's an excellent
Am I
point.
voting as well?
In theory, yes. Mr. Conklin, could you please sit down, Mr.?
Okay, thanks, Boyd.
Sure.
Thank you. Noted, thank you.
Okay, so a second question on your comment that this would be because people who lived here can't afford to stay here or live here, but what you're proposing is to increase the cost of living here to give out this money. Is
That's
that
right. That's right. But when you think of how many births, I did ask Christy, but I didn't get the answer in time. How many people are born in domicile, babies are actually domiciled immediately in Westborough. I don't have that data yet. My strong opinion is it's not so significant, okay? When, you know, we have a lot of revenue and tax revenue in this town, right? I mean, I think if we have 5 babies a year, that would be a lot who qualify.
Yes.
And, you know, yeah, go ahead.
No, finish your thought, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I thought you were going to ask about just the $1,000. It is meaningful, but it's modest, right? So it's, you know, hey, people open $500,000 investment accounts because they want the hat of the company. You know, they want the free toaster. People, you know, decide on those kinds of things. It's an acknowledgement. It's an acknowledgement.
I'm hoping
of
nobody
people
has
who
a
are from
baby
Westborough.
because they
It's an-
think
it's
that
an acknowledgement.
$1,000 is going to pay for one
Oh,
100th
absolutely.
of
I
their
know. I've been all
costs
over
or
that.
something.
I have kids myself. I know it
Okay.
lasts about a day.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chair. So, when I saw this Townie Baby article, I really thought it was a joke. So I'm glad Mr. Gilbert has come forward and said how serious he is about this. And actually, other members of the community have said, this is a joke, right? So unfortunately, it's not a joke, as Mr. Gilbert has stated. And the reason why it's not a joke, first of all, other than it's taking up our time, as Mr. Shafford already mentioned, is that there are a lot, and you started to go down that path, but you kind of didn't finish on the examples in the world that align with what you're saying. So I'm going to just share a couple of those for our benefit and that of the public. The Lebensborn program, 1935, included the Mother's Cross. This was awarded to women who bore many children, bronze for 4 children, silver for 6, and gold for 8+. It's under the German influence, if you will. The Nazi government gave marriage loans, strikingly similar to what you're proposing, although you just want to give cash, which is even more interesting, to encourage young people to marry and have children of pure Aryan race. The loan was forgiven percentually after each child was born. Stalin also instituted programs to encourage women to bear children. Although not necessarily for purely racial motives, it was more to increase the population of the Soviet Union for power. And I could go on and on and on, but clearly...
I have a couple other examples, too.
Actually, I
Allow
don't
her to
want...
finish, please.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
actually not asking for your examples.
Oh, okay.
This is an insult to the voters of Westborough. It's offensive to people that weren't born here, and it's not even anything close to anything that would be equitable. The fact that we would reward people to have children and now we want to opt in for sex. So I guess those two actually come together. Let's have more sex and have babies in town. I'm not really sure where you're going, but it's ridiculous, it's offensive, and I'm sorry you're wasting everyone's time.
Are there other comments on this? I'll go to Alan and then to Patrick. Alan.
Okay, so, thank you, Select Board Member Marshall, for your comments. I was actually going to talk about the Levensborn program as well. Mr. Gilbert has said that, he wrote this about the gist. Unfortunately, what he's doing is proposing legislation. So beyond what he's saying the intent was, and just beyond some of the absurdity and the unconstitutionality of what he's proposing. And I think Mr. Gilbert is smart enough to know that words matter. When you write legislation, the words matter. And this article talks about current, only applies to current residents, as we said, who were born in Westborough. So it doesn't talk about, if it had just said residents of Westborough, then that would have meant residents now and in the future. But current residents would mean this is limited to individuals who are currently residents at the time this is passed. As Mr. Gilbert said, he hadn't looked at the numbers. He's also smart enough to know, and it was mentioned earlier with respect to other articles by a different proponent, that the demographics of Westborough have changed dramatically over the last 20 years. This was, for many reasons, not the slight of which were, the fact that Boston was the inventor of redlining when it comes to real estate, that the Federal Housing Administration used to bar non-white people from buying or reselling homes, selling homes or reselling homes to people of color. And the code of conduct of the Realtor Association until the early 70s promoted segregation. And so Westborough, when you look at who are current residents of Westborough who were born in Westborough, who at this point in time would be of childbearing age, you're looking at a predominantly white population. In fact, in response to emails about this article sent to the school committee and the select board, it was pointed out to Mr. Gilbert that someone might encourage all of her friends to then have babies in Westborough. And his response was, well, tell all your, and this person was a person of color. His response was, well, make sure you tell white people this too, or something about white babies.
No, that's not true.
So it didn't
It's
take,
absolutely true.
No, that's not. That's completely
It's
out of
absolutely
context.
true.
Oh, that's preposterous. This is
Okay,
is
well, allow
ongoing.
Mr. Edberg to finish his
me.
comment before you go forward.
this is my, I would be
Kangaroo
happy
court.
to have those emails posted for the public to view. They are, because they were sent to the select board, they're part of the public record. So, it's interesting. Some younger people in town, some of the folks who've gone through our U.S. history program, actually, were talking about this. I asked them what they thought, and they're like, oh, he wants white babies. It was pretty obvious to the youth. And so we can pretend this is about preserving the past, but even the wording of the article in his statement uses coding words that were common, for example, in the Realtor Code about preserving community and preserving our heritage. And so when you talk about preserving your heritage from a generation that was predominantly white, you're talking about preserving that white heritage. And so let's not tiptoe about what this is really about.
Yes.
That's all.
Thank you.
So I
Can I
would,
respond?
I don't think it was a question. One second.
No, that wasn't a question.
so I would just say that when I first read this article, all I could think of was that you were trolling the town here. And what an unbelievable waste of time to present this to the town. I'm with you on one thing. I would love to figure out good ways that we can make have our children be able to live in our community more. I have 3 kids. Not a single one of them can afford to live in Westborough right now. I encourage you to help figure out how we can do that. This is not that. So my question to you is this. I've lived here for 40 years. Would I qualify?
Well, were you born here?
No.
Was this the first residence after your birth?
No, my wife was. My wife's lived here her whole life.
After you were born?
Nope. I
Okay.
was an Army brat, lived around the world.
Unfortunately, no, you would not qualify.
So my wife was born here. I
So-
just heard that.
Okay, so yes,
So-
your children would qualify.
Okay,
And any,
so my next
this is-
question to you-
This is
my-
in perpetuity.
So
This
my-
is anyone from beyond.
So my next question to you
Whoever is living
is,
here.
the logistics of this is just ridiculous.
Why?
So let me just explain to you
How?
why.
How?
So,
How is it-
so
how is it-
my wife and I, my wife qualifies.
So as the
my
town
wife
changes-
qualifies,
Yep.
and we divorce. Let's say we divorce. Who gets the money?
Well, at the time you were married, when you had your
Who
children.
gets the money? She has a baby, and 6 months before she has a baby,
Well,
we
that would be
divorce.
up to your divorce attorney.
So
Right.
you don't think that should have been something that would have been spelled out? I mean, again, that's just one example of how ridiculous this is.
Well, there are answers, but I'm not allowed to answer them.
You're not allowed,
So
well, they're not
net-
contained
most-
within this. And I think,
there-
I my advice
two-
to you
two
is
really
be
important
prepared
things.
for
Can I
town
say-
meeting, because you're going to
Okay,
actually,
one
really
second.
important things.
You
You're
can
gonna get people-
respond as soon as he's done.
you're going to get people who are going to be asking you questions like this,
Yep.
okay? And you're clearly have not thought this all the way out. My other question to you is, I assume you're a fan of the Constitution. And there's this concept in the Constitution called equal protection. And based on the description you just gave me, since I'm not born in this town, and you're taxing the people of this community, I'm not getting the equal protection of the Constitution. So this is actually in violation of the U.S. Constitution. So you might want to look into that piece of it as well, because if you were specifically preventing the ability for everybody to be treated equal, then you're in violation of the Constitution. And if you want to answer.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that's
wait,
it.
I'm sorry, Patrick, you done? There was a question in there. I'll give you the opportunity to answer.
Thank you. That's a great idea. Thank you for that, and I would like to look into that before town meeting. Okay. Secondly, this is the first article I've written, so it is meant in every way from conception to be in perpetuity. Okay. So whatever demographics existed in this town 20 years ago, whenever it was, those would change over time, and it would just put a little bit of a dampening mechanism on people leaving the town. Okay.
That's their right.
In addition,
Let him finish, Patrick.
a minor,
Patrick, this goes both
you
ways.
know, acknowledgement, hey, we'd love you to stay. I hope that something like this would be adopted in every community of any background, ethnic or otherwise. It doesn't say anything about that in this article. And so, you know, have at it. I think it would be wonderful. I think that the sole reason is to try to the town is basically reaching out and saying, hey, we value you guys, which I believe, I've just said, I've been a beneficiary of local knowledge wherever I've lived. I think many of us have, you know, from simple stuff to, hey, where's the dump, to where do I move my car during a snowstorm, things like that, to more meaningful things. And I do believe that that is an asset that any community, any town has, and that it does develop over time. I think it's more meaningful over time. It doesn't mean it's exclusive to people who are in the town, but, you know, I think you could just make that argument also, that there's when people move away, you lose all of that knowledge, okay? Not only do you lose the individuals, but you lose that that, whatever you want to call it, shared community memory, okay? And I've seen it everywhere. I've seen it in Maine, I've seen it down the Cape, and it's kind of sad to see. So it's America, that kind of thing happens everywhere, but, you know, hey, we would love people to stay in those communities if they want to, consider it as an option.
Thank you. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I have a question. So, how do you reconcile your proposal with people who can't have children?
Well, I guess, you know, it's not something that, if they adopt, that they would qualify.
So they would have to, they can't or they don't have children. So it goes back to Patrick's point that it wouldn't be equal to all people, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think adoption, if you've adopted a baby, you live in a community.
They can't or they don't, on its principle, right? So it's not,
What's that?
it's not equal, is to Patrick's point, this isn't equal, but I heard your answer, so thank you.
Well,
Yep,
you
no,
know,
we're
we're
all
looking
set.
for
I got it,
equity.
Ted.
We can't
Okay.
confirm, we can't control outcomes.
By the way, people aren't gonna stay here for $1,000.
Okay.
Well, like I
all right,
said,
well,
it's-
that was a comment, it was not a question. I would
Yeah.
just say, if there's no other comments, I would just make the final comment. You know, I think people have read about this specific article on boston.com. We have had radio reach out to us as a town and other outlets. My general opinion is this article has been an embarrassment to this town, an absolute embarrassment. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your
Article
time.
46. I believe, is that also yours?
No. 46?
Oh, 46? Okay.
Susan Reynolds, Upton Road. There are many parents concerned that there's a lot of political bias that is existing in the town. On social media, they may be weighing in on their political opinions, and so this is void of some article information, but it pretty much stands as is in terms of establishing a no political bias to really focus on the critical thinking skills and the issues for students at all ages, and that when teachers and other educators are presenting, that they should not demonstrate their political bias while they're on school property or when using social media with their professional titles, which some have done in the last few weeks, and I'm not going to cite all those examples.
Okay.
All set.
That's it? That's it? Patrick?
So many people knew her. I had a wonderful history teacher in town, Miss Charlotte Spinney. She passed away a few years ago. She was a lifelong resident of Westborough. And in her classroom, I would sit in her history classroom and I would learn about history, and she would allow us to debate all sorts of different civics type topics. I don't ever remember her weighing in, but what I'm envisioning under this article, if someone were to support it, is that if Miss Spinney were to mistakenly slip up and provide some sort of perspective of her own in a classroom, she'd be in trouble. And my question to you is, how would you foresee policing this? Who's policing this? And who's paying for that policing so that teachers, and I also have a daughter who's a teacher, are being policed all the time? They already get harassed enough elsewhere, so I'm just curious, how do you see this playing out?
Well, I do see it as a guideline. I do think that if there's something on social media, that person should be instructed to take it down. But in terms of, we've right now got a hate speech policy going on in the school, and there's policing going on of that, whereas before, kids just had to work it out. So I guess I have not envisioned, how that would be. It's just something that if the school committee were to say, yes, ideally we want to focus on critical thinking skills, that's something that each department chair or the person in charge, the principal, et cetera, would need to weigh in on that.
So I think it's, as I said before, I'm not interested in violating the Constitution, and this to me is infringing on the First Amendment rights of our teachers. So I'm not for that, and I would also just suggest that you might want to look into, the free speech aspect of this, because to police, and hate speech in particular. The Supreme Court's ruled on that and specifically defined what hate speech is. And I certainly would expect a teacher to be reprimanded if they were posting hate speech. But in this case, if they're providing a political view on something, even if it's something that I don't agree with, that's good for a student to hear, that there's differences of opinions and how we work through those differences of opinions. And I would hope that in a teaching situation that the child would be able to take that information away and work with it.
And as I did say, it was around going over the key issues and the critical thinking skills. I think people can present that in different ways.
Yes, show me.
Yeah, so I actually love that Westborough actually does teach our kids critical thinking skills on a wide range of key issues that are covered in election. I don't think they necessarily talk a whole lot about local issues, although I've seen an increase of that from some of the outreach from students to this to the select board, specifically with interest in particular areas that we're working on. So I actually think Westborough is doing a great job on that. I would also be concerned with First Amendment rights, particularly in a private setting. If someone were, you have a teacher who says, I'm going to post something on social media, I don't think that that's for anyone to police. Just because they're a teacher, they shouldn't be held to a free speech higher standard. We might hold them up to a higher standard, and you can be judgmental of that, and I could be judgmental of that, but that doesn't allow us to limit their free speech. So I actually applaud you for, saying, hey, we want to be focused on establishing critical thinking skills. I think we're doing that. And I think that having a student only up through the 7th grade, have never experienced anything where political bias was taught. Critical thinking around issues dating back to most recently my daughter studying Egypt and kind of Mesopotamia and all kind of early civilization. Fascinating how they're connecting today to way back then. So I'm very proud of what's happening. I think you should be as well as a taxpayer. I know you've raised children in this system or in this town, and I have no worries. So I personally don't think we need the article, but that's all.
Okay, any other comments, questions?
John?
Yes.
So I do think it's worth commenting because, again, I have a high schooler, and I have a high schooler who came home last year, and I have a high schooler who likes to argue, unlike most high schoolers. Mm-hmm. And he has potentially very different political beliefs than I do. And he has come home from school after having conversations in classes and been able to engage us in a reasonable dialogue and conversation about those. So I do think our schools are doing a wonderful job in teaching them critical thinking skills. I don't think that his teachers are telling them what to believe or how they should believe. And again, I echo all of our teachers and all of our staff have a First Amendment right to share whatever beliefs they want on social media, right? Obviously, hate speech is a different, and to Patrick's point, something well-defined. All of these teachers have a right to have an opinion when they go home. There are people outside of school who are entitled to believe what they believe and to share those opinions. And there's no reason that they should be restricted. And I do think, though, they are doing a phenomenal job in teaching our children to have educated, thoughtful conversations.
Final comments okay. Thank you very
Sean?
much.
Thank you.
Sean?
Alan, I'm sorry.
Alan, really?
So just,
Alan, it's
Just-
9:18.
no, just very quickly, I want to point out, I'm gonna suggest the proponent actually contact the school committee or the administration, because the school committee already has a policy about teachers and the use of social media. There are actually guidelines and restrictions on things that they shouldn't, and actually some things that they can't post because of their role of teacher and information that could be sensitive to students or potentially identify students in the school system. So I'd also point out that our district sets very high standards for the quality of the curriculum and the activity of educators in the classroom, and has a proven history of our faculty and staff, teachers aid, not only living up to, but exceeding that standard and expectation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Advisory Finance Committee, I want to encourage everybody to come out to town meeting and vote your conscience. You'll have a chance to vote on all these articles and many more. And I will take a motion, at least first for the Advisory Finance Committee to adjourn. By someone.
McMahon, I make a motion to adjourn.
Bradley,
Clap
second?
Okay, let's do it.
OJ, yes.
Beth?
She might be gone.
I think she's
Yeah.
frozen or something. Okay, let's move on.
Wake up, Beth. Bradley, yes.
Brandt, yes.
Clap, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Okay, AFC is adjourned.
Okay, motion to adjourn for the select board.
So moved.
Seconded?
Alan?
Edinburgh, yes?
Marshall, yes.
Welch, yes.
Keo, yes. We are adjourned. Thank you for attending this evening.
And
Thank you, Westborough TV.
TV.